welcome back to The Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
I'm pretty good, sir. How are you?
I'm very well. We've been talking for about half an hour off air, but let's pretend like we've just started talking.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I'm doing well. I am very much looking forward to talking about this film.
Yeah.
So, when did you first see The Omen?
I think it was at my dad's house. So I was ridiculously young when I watched this.
Okay, too young.
And it would have been. I think it would have been on another one of those Betamax jobs. I think when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it was on video when I was very little.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I'm really not sure when I saw this film, to be honest. Really no idea. I just know I was probably too young. That's all I do know.
Yeah. Well, I think it was on a lot. It was on almost every year when I was a kid.
It
so
was
I think,
on a lot. Yeah.
You know, there was plenty of opportunities to catch it on TV.
For sure.
It was definitely one of those ones that everybody sort of talked about and knew about. You know, it was it's kind of right up there with The Exorcist, but not as what's the word I'm looking for?
Extreme, explicit.
Yeah, and it's not doesn't have the same sort of visceral reaction when somebody says The Exorcist. People go, The Exorcist. I think The Omen. The Omen has a I love the Omen, or The Omen. Wow. But when somebody you say The Exorcist, they're like, The Exorcists. I think it's almost there, but not quite.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I love The Omen, and in many ways it feels like an older film than it is.
Yeah.
Like 73, but it almost feels like kind of 50s horror film to me.
76.
76 is it? Sorry. And it almost feels like a kind of almost 50s horror film to me, in a weird way, in some way. It feels like it could certainly fit right in with like the kind of Hammer stuff, for sure.
Yeah.
The Devil Rides Out kind of era of Hammer.
Yeah, and I think the original script would have made it that, because the original script had like covens in it, and it was a lot more sort of gothic horror-y. So I think the original script would have definitely been more Hammer than it ended up. I think the director basically said that he wanted he wanted it less to be about the horror and more to be about a family that might be just losing their minds. It might be real. It might not be.
Sure.
And I think the way the ending was changed makes it all sort of, yes, it's definitely the Antichrist. It's not just in their heads.
No. But I do think the film plays it. I don't know. I think it's kind of obvious something's up pretty much straight away.
Yeah, I think so.
But I like the idea of it being kind of a bit more of a mystery of like, and you can certainly see it from Robert Thorne's perspective, that he's just like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, this is ridiculous. There must be a rational explanation for this,
And I think the Lee Remick's character, Catherine, her sort of madness and her, she's constantly doubting herself and thinking, well, I don't feel like I'm attached to this boy. I don't, and it
she
plays
senses
into the whole
something's wrong.
But it also plays into that sort of that feeling that mothers sometimes have after they
the postnatal depression kind of deal,
where they feel that they're not.
I also always got the I this is probably me reading too much into it, but I also always got the impression that like she might have had past mental health issues, and that's kind of why he kept it quiet. And he was like I don't know, because the way he reacts to her a lot of the time, it's like it's almost like you've been around her when she's had issues in the past, and like this might have be a reoccurrence of previous issues. But should we go through it as we always do, out of sequence and completely buggered up like always? But we'll try our best.
Let's do it.
So, in Rome, on the 6th of June at 6 a.m., Very important.
Yep.
Robert Thorne, who is an American diplomat, he's rushing to his local hospital. Did we want to talk about the opening credits and the score and stuff? Because that's amazing.
Oh man, that's
the score to this movie. In fact, is just I love it.
It's one of the best music scores ever.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Hands down. It kind of changed horror soundtracks forever.
Yeah, I was thinking that while I was watching it. I was like, wow, this is so influential, this score. Mm-hmm. It's almost to the point where it seems cliche now. But it's like, no, this kind of started it. Like, this is, you know...
And what I love about it was that Jerry Goldsmith, you know, there's two things that I love about this. One, Jerry Goldsmith wanted certain bits to sound like the Jaws theme.
Sure. Yeah.
In particular, the scene where Damien's going to church, because he wanted the build.
Yeah.
And you get
that scene is wonderful, and we'll get to that when we get to it. But I love that. I love that shot.
Also, I love the fact that he'd never won any awards for his soundtracks at that point.
Yeah.
And he was so tired of like going to the awards and not getting anything and always losing that he wasn't going to go that year.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know, he was convinced to go, and he finally won, you know, for this. And you think, well, that's bloody deserved.
It's well deserved. It's an incredible score.
And you know, his soundtracks, none of them are too shabby. You know,
no, Jerry Goldsmith's incredibly talented.
Soundtracks ever, but this is a truly monumental soundtrack.
It is, and like you said, it's been repeated so much since that you know, it's. Like we've said a few times with movies and stuff in the past, it's like, you know, when you watch an underdog sports story now, you're like, oh, yeah, you know, it's Rocky. Yeah. And it's very difficult for someone new to watch Rocky now. I imagine with this, hearing that soundtrack, you'd be like, oh, it's just like the generic horror soundtrack. But it's like, no, this is where it kind of started a lot of this stuff. Yeah. But yes, in any case, Robert Thorne, who's wonderfully played by Gregory Peck, is an American diplomat, and he is rushing to the hospital to see his pregnant wife, Catherine, who is going into labour. Basically, he's running late. I'm not sure it really establishes why. He just is. He's a diplomat. I guess he's very busy. He's rushing to hospital.
I presume he's just been at work. He's just
He's just finished, and obviously she's gone into labour. He's rushed to hospital, but unfortunately, as he turns up, he's told that his child is a stillbirth. His child is dead. However, a priest, Father Spiletto, is it Spiletto?
I think so. Yeah.
He gives him the choice to adopt the baby. They've not told Catherine yet.
No.
And he says, you know, there's this child, and I love this scene. It's really cool where this priest is like,
they've literally got this baby right in front of him with this nun. Nun is holding this baby, and they're literally going, look at the baby, look, you know, yours has died, but we've got this other one.
We've got this other one, and she will never need to know. You can save her. And the father even says, he's like, on this day, God has given you a child. It's like, God has blessed you with a child. Really laying on thick to this grieving father, effectively, and who's also really concerned about his wife, and you know, he's like, God, this is going to crush her, obviously, and they convince him. They convince him to take the child. They say that the kid has no parents. That it was born pretty much the same time. So, you know, the mother died in childbirth, I think is what they say, isn't it?
Yeah.
So basically, it's like the mother died in childbirth. There's no other family members. So this baby is going to be put up for adoption, but you could just take it as yours now, and spare your wife the suffering. So he reluctantly agrees. You know, I think probably more for his wife's sanity than for his own.
I think so too.
To be honest,
I think it's to save his wife's grief and to stop her,
and one of the things, and one of the things I really love in Gregory Peck's performance during this movie is that I always think you always in almost every scene, especially as the movie goes on, you can feel the weight of this lie. And you almost feel like in any one scene, he's almost ready or contemplating just telling her. It's like, I should, he's like weighing it up. He's like, I should say something. I should probably just tell her.
He's keeping a lie from her.
And it's a huge lie. It's like massive, even if it wasn't the son of the devil, like.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Gregory Peck was a phenomenal actor anyway. I mean, he was, he'd been in so many amazing movies.
He has got one of the best voices.
Yes,
I love his voice, and I love his. He almost underacts everything. And that sounds like a criticism, but it's just in the best way possible. He comes across like a diplomat. He really does. He's really calm and collected, and just.
And I think the thing there's a scene later on which was the only argument that he had with the director, where later on, and he Peck wanted to lose it and smash things up, and Donner said no. He said you have to be calm and collected. And they argued about it for apparently a whole day.
Really?
And eventually Peck said, well, you're the director. I think you're wrong, but I'm going to do it as you say. And when he saw the dailies the next day, he was like, no, I think actually you were right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So his performance, I think that's his performance is a tribute to Donner's direction as well as, his amazing performance.
Yeah. And of course, Richard Donner's passing is the reason we're covering this. I mean, we would have covered it eventually anyway because it's an amazing movie. But the reason we're covering this today is we wanted to cover a Richard Donner movie. So the boy is named Damien, and they moved to England because he's appointed ambassador. I think he's U.S. ambassador to England, isn't he?
Yes, he's appointed American ambassador to England.
Yeah. So they head.
And do you know what I love about that as well is the fact that the writer, he basically wrote things in other countries just so that he could get a trip there.
He's like, I fancy doing some shopping in London.
Exactly. Yeah. So I've never been to London. I think I'll write a script in London, which I thought was brilliant.
That is good. That is good planning.
I think originally the original script called for, I think it was Switzerland. I think it was going to be made in.
Right. Okay.
It was good. Yeah. So, but yeah, it was changed to London, and so they got that's what they did. They got the
family
the
holiday to London. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got that wonderful scene at the lakes where the kid just disappears, and they're like, oh my god, and you've got this moment of panic, and of course Catherine is immediately like looking in the woods, and Robert is like immediately like, he has drowned. He's like, he is in the water, and he's checking the water, and of course it gives them all a fright. And Damien is, and in this scene he's just acting like a kid, really, and he's just there laughing, and they're like, oh my god. It's all quite innocent at this stage.
That's one of the things they wanted to do with this movie, is that they they said, when people think about the Antichrist, they think of an adult. They think of this guy who's come
all powerful,
to destroy the world and all that sort of stuff. And so no one really thinks about, well, he was a kid at some point. Surely he was obviously born, and so they wanted to to see this kid, and they wanted to show this build up of what might happen, sort of thing.
Yeah. But they buy a house as well in England.
Yeah, they get the
it's
house.
a lovely house.
You get a sort of a little
montage of sorts.
You get a sort of montage of the kid growing up to from baby up to 5. I think
5. I think it's his 5th birthday, isn't it? That we cut to.
He gets to 5.
Yeah. So yes, he's 5 then, and Damien, played by Harvey Stevens, now celebrating his 5th birthday, and it's like the biggest party in the world. Like,
I love the story of how he cast Harvey. You know the story of how he cast Harvey?
I don't know.
So, Donna they were doing the casting for kids, and what he wanted was to do the scene where he loses it at the church.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably the biggest acting scene that he has in the movie, really.
So what he would do to the kids is he'd go to the kids, "Come at me."
Right.
And little Harvey just went absolutely crazy and kicked him in the nuts.
And that sold it. He was like, okay, fine.
And Donna went, dye his hair, and we've got him. It's him. That's it. Just...
Wow. We'll get to that scene in a bit, because that scene is absolutely wonderful. I love that scene so much. But yeah, so this birthday party, this is obviously he's a US ambassador. They've got a lot of money, but this is a party that
there are generals there. There's
everyone. This is more done for like appearances than it almost is for the kid, you know. And
I love this is where you're introduced to David Warner's character, Keith Jennings, and I love he's a photographer, and someone says to him about the people there, and he says, "Yeah, I'm almost waiting for his canonization."
Yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous. They've got like merry-go-rounds and God knows what going on.
Clowns everywhere.
Yeah.
It's completely full on.
A bloody expensive birthday.
Yeah.
But while he's celebrating, the family's nanny sees a large black dog. And they have this moment where they kind of lock eyes, the dog and the nanny. I don't know if they named the nanny. I don't think they did.
No, she doesn't have a name.
She's just Nanny.
She's just Nanny, yeah.
Just Nanny, which makes me think of Duckula
now. That's Jack Palance's daughter.
Is it really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I didn't realise that until then, yeah.
So I think of all the scenes in this movie, this is the scene that's stuck in my head the most. My entire life since I've seen it. It's that if someone says the Omen, this is the scene I remember. So of course she locks eyes with this dog, and then you get this moment with Keith Jennings taking the photos and the kids having a great time, and he's going down the slides and around the merry-go-rounds, and you can hear the nanny calling for him. She's like, Damien, Damien, and they're just playing away and just having fun, and eventually she shouts loud enough, gets everyone's attention. Everyone looks at her, and she's basically stood on a window ledge with a noose around her neck, and she just says, Damien, it's all for you, Damien. And then she hangs herself, smashing into the window below her.
Dramatically
very
falling
dramatic.
Against the window below.
One of the most shocking scenes I'd seen when I saw this movie. I was like, wow, that was really, that's a shocking scene. And amazing. And then, of course, we get, after that, obviously, Robert grabs Damien and he's like, tells his assistant to go and see, go and deal with it while he looks the other way. But of course, as he's holding
the children are being to try to cover children's faces and stuff. And
but of course, as he holds Damien also catches sight of the dog, and the dog's looking back at him, and we get another moment there.
Yeah, and he waves at the dog, doesn't he?
He does indeed.
Little wave to the dog.
Yeah.
And of course, David Warner takes more photos of the.
Of course. Well, being an asshole photographer, he's
exactly.
He's like, well, and also, I suppose you can't blame him at that point. It's like, well, this is newsworthy, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
So fair enough. It kind of goes with the territory, because it turns out that he does actually have a really good heart, this guy. But for now, it is a bit like, oh, you asshole. But yeah, so the next day, Robert is in his office, he's visited by a priest. And
I like the fact that the secretary says, "Oh, there's a priest here to see you," and it's like, "What does he want?" It's like, well, he says he won't say. He says, "It must be donation."
Yeah, so obviously donation time. Yeah, send him in. Fine, whatever. And we're introduced to Father Brennan, played amazingly, as everything he does, by Patrick Troughton.
Yeah.
And
who's wearing a cross around his neck that you could literally nail someone to. The cross he's wearing is huge.
Well, as we find out a little later, he is trying desperately to protect himself. So yeah, it is comically big, but there is a reason for it in the canon of the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he basically kind of starts off. Well, he kind of goes from 0 to 60 very quickly. But he starts off being like, oh, you need to take Jesus Christ into your home or whatever. And it's like, it starts off like kind of reasonable, and then it just goes like, whoa.
And it's the way he does it. He full on keeps saying, you have to drink the blood of Christ to eat his flesh. It's like, there are nicer ways to have done that, dude.
This is not going to work.
You could have explained that better than being the full-on lunatic.
Yeah, it's very true. But of course, like I said, it escalates very quickly to where he's kind of, shouting at Robert, who's asking him to get out. He says, I was present at the birth 5 years ago in Rome. And is it at this point? I think he actually says that it was. Oh no, he tries to say it was a dog, and then they interrupt, don't they?
He tries to say that what the mother was.
I saw its mother. I saw its mother, is what he says, and then he goes to say it was a. And then they burst in.
The security get in, and he says, eject him from the property.
Yeah, he does, however, manage to say, accept Jesus Christ is the only way you're going to be able to fight the son of the devil.
He says you have to go to, is it Megiddo? To see
Bugenhagen.
Father Bugenhagen,
Yeah. Actually, he does say the poem here, does the rhyme, which I've forgotten completely, but something to do with Rome and obviously the coming of power and stuff, isn't it?
When the Jews go back to Zion.
Yes.
There you go. So when the Jews return to Zion, a comet rips the sky. The Holy Roman Empire rises. Then you and I must die. And from the eternal sea he rises, creating armies on either shore, turning man against his brother till man exists no more.
There we go. And of course, we'll get the modern interpretation of that later. But for now, it's just a bit of a cryptic thing. And of course, the priest is getting escorted out of the building. And Jennings, ever-present Jennings, takes some photos, and he asks him, he's like, excuse me, Father, and turns around, takes a photo of him, gets a good photo of him. I'm trying to think, did the camera get broken on his way in, or is it's a bit later, isn't it? It's a little later. So then later, Jennings starts developing the pictures from the party and of the priest. And he does notice that there's a line, shall we say, sort of over the head of the priest. But he thinks it's just an anomaly, easy for me to say, because it doesn't appear anywhere else on the film. It's just in that one place. So it's a little odd.
It's just sort of above him at that point, isn't it? It's just sort of slightly above his shoulder, sort of thing.
So he thinks it's odd because obviously normally an anomaly like that would be there through the whole film, or at least through most of it. So he can't quite figure it out, but just a weird thing. Meanwhile, at the Thorne residence, a clearly evil psychopathic nanny appears.
The thing with the camera actually is it must be before that, because I was
thinking it was before that. I think it was when he was coming in, wasn't it?
It's when he's coming in. Yeah, it's when he's arriving, because the press, there's presses everywhere.
The press are everywhere because of the previous
whether his nanny did drugs, and whether
that's right.
How well did you know the nanny and all that sort of stuff. And that's when he bumps into Jennings and knocks the camera out of his hand. And Jennings, he says, "I will replace." He says he apologizes, and he says, "I'll buy you a new one," sort of thing. And Jennings just says, "Let's just say you owe me a favor."
Yeah, see, if I was him, I would have been like, no, I'm not owing you a favor. I will pay for it, because I'm not owing someone from the press a favor. You can fuck right off.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. I'll give you 100 quid now.
I'll give you all the money you want. Just go away. Yeah. But anyway, so the following day, a mysterious and clearly evil nanny turns up to replace the previous nanny, Mrs. Baylock
by Billy Whitelaw.
Oh, she is evil as fuck. From the moment she turns up, you're like, oh god, I've got a bad feeling about this woman. She's like, just the look on her face and everything about her. She's sinister. Even when she's being seemingly nice, she comes across super sinister. So yeah, she appears and they're like, great. This is great. And she's like, it's obviously a difficult time for you guys, so let me go meet him, let me go deal with him, and try and introduce myself, see if he likes me, if he's happy with me, then obviously I'll stay, and it'll take the pressure off of you guys, because you've got this horrible situation going on. But of course, as she walks away, I think it's Robert says, oh, well, that was a good find. That was really good, well done. And Catherine's like, I thought you got him, got her, like, I thought you contacted her. And they're like, no. So they follow her up the stairs and they're like, Mrs. Baylock, like, who told you? We neither of us actually contacted you to nanny. We've not even put an advertisement out for a new nanny. Like, how do you know about this? And she comes back and says, well, the agency that the previous nanny worked for, we've heard what happened and we've sent you they sent you me, a replacement nanny.
It's like an apology for sending you a disturbed young girl. And I like the way what she says when she first turns up about how these young girls, when they're boyfriends and things.
She's like, I've got nothing. It's fine. I'm over all of that. I'm over love.
I'm past all that. I don't have. You don't need to worry about any of that nonsense.
Yeah. She's like, I don't need any of that now. And then of course she does. She goes in to see Damien, and I can't remember exactly what she says.
She says something along the lines of, "Don't worry, I'm here to protect thee."
Yes, something like that, isn't it? Yeah. And
he's just playing on the carpet, just sort of basically smiles at her.
Yeah, I mean, he's still very.
That little sort of creepy little boy smile of his.
Yes, yeah, he has got a very sinister looking smile.
He really does.
Yeah, he looks very scary. So yes, and I think we're then introduced to or reintroduced to the dog, aren't we?
A little later he goes. Doesn't he?
Robert pops up, doesn't he, to see how they're getting on?
Yeah, and there's the dog outside. Outside the room,
and he's just like, what the fuck? Yeah, his dog just gets up and growls at him, and then
where the fuck did that come?
Yeah, where did it? Because it's a massive dog as well. I mean, it's massive. Apparently, they were very playful dogs, but
well, apparently this particular one was he didn't want to be growler at all. Apparently, he just wanted to play.
Yeah.
Apparently he was really lovely. The ones later were a bit different.
God, those ones later, that is a terrifying scene. We'll get to that. That's it. We'll get to that in a bit. But so Mrs. Baylock comes out and she tells the dog to calm down, and Mr. Thorne is quite rightly like, what the fuck is that dog doing here? Like my 5-year-old son is in that room.
And it's the way she also says, oh, well, we just found him on the grounds and he was lovely. The boy's taken to him, so we brought him home.
Yeah, and we thought you could do with the dog. Yeah. And obviously he's like, if I want a dog, I will fucking get a dog.
Yeah,
like, you don't
we'll
choose
get our own dog. It's like not some random dog you've found on the bloody street.
Who's already been aggressive in the 5 seconds I've met him, yeah.
So he says to her, tomorrow you have to phone the RSPCA and get it rehomed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To which she agrees.
Of course. And then, these problems continue. The following day, I think it's meant to be the following day, we get it's I guess Sunday, it's church day. And
do we get this before the zoo?
Yes, I think the zoo's after. I think. Maybe I'm wrong. I think it's after. I think it's the church first, and then it's the safari park. I think.
Okay.
I could be wrong though. We could do this in any order.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Do the church first.
Yeah. So Mrs. Baylock basically kind of challenges Catherine's authority. Like Catherine comes in and she's like, have you got him ready? Is he ready for church? And she's just like, oh, you do really think a boy of that age is going to really understand, what church is? And she's just like, the fuck are you doing? Like, you're a nanny. Like, I've told you to get him ready. Just get him ready. Like, what are you doing? So you can already see that Mrs. Baylock is not
your standard nanny.
She's not your standard nanny, no. I mean, she's lucky she hasn't been fired already, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I guess it's a difficult time for them, so they're like,
I think just with all the things that are going on, I guess,
exactly.
You feel like there's just like, they're just happy to have the help.
Yes, yeah. But she does eventually relent, and she gets him ready.
And she does say an Episcopal wedding, which is like, oh, that's American, but they're in England, it would be Anglican, but fine.
Yeah.
That's a very small nitpick. It's fine.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, so obviously
they're all
head
done
off
up in their finery, and they get in the Bentley.
Yes, to head off to church. Lovely car. To head off to church. And they kind of like, he seems okay, and then it's once they get through the gates, isn't it? And they're heading up that long path towards the church. They managed to find the perfect sort of church for it, with that long drive it's great, isn't it?
And the statue of Jesus on top of on top of the tower I love that the kid sort of, he stood up in the sort of footwell, isn't he? And he's looking between the front seats, and he's just stood there
terrified, in terror. Yeah. He's like almost frozen in fear at that point, like paralyzed with fear.
And he looks back at his mum, and she's like, "What's wrong?" And she's sort of like, and it's like, well, she feels his head. He's like, well, he's not got a fever or anything.
No, he seems fine.
But he seems absolutely terrified.
And
and this is where the music is amazing. Like I said,
incredible.
Yeah, it does have that Jaws feel. It's got this.
It really does. Now that you've pointed it out, it absolutely does have that feel. That ramping tension.
Yeah, it completely builds as the car is getting closer and closer to the church.
Yeah,
and they pull up in front of the car, and Robert gets out, and he's talking to this guy, and then Damien completely goes berserk. He basically starts pulling his mum's hair, and he's attacking her and scratching
he's like,
at her.
It's like, I mean, she ends up with like bruises all over her face. Like he properly goes for it, and of course he tells the driver, just like, drive on, like fucking get us out of here. The car,
he pulls him off of her, and he's holding him, and he tells the driver to go on, and Damien is screaming, help.
Yeah. It looks terrible, and of course there are all of these people there, all of these guests that are stood outside because they were greeting people as they were coming in. So it's a real sort of, obviously, shocking moment for them, but also quite embarrassing to them. To his kind of standing in that society. I guess it probably looks awful. So of course he tells the driver to drive on, and then we see that she's beaten, like her face, she's applying makeup to a really bruised face. And they discuss whether or not they should take Damien to a doctor, and then it's almost like they'd never really thought about it before, but it dawns on them that Damien's never been sick. In like 5 years, like this kid is not once
not
been
so much
sick.
as a cold,
nothing,
no chickenpox, measles, nothing.
Which is obviously bizarre.
And of course, Catherine sort of, it's just, isn't that normal? Some kids just don't get ill, do they?
Sure.
And she's sort of rationalizing it, but he's beginning to think.
He's like, this is weird.
There's definitely something with this kid. This kid is not normal.
Yeah. So yes, and then maybe this happened before, but Kathy takes Damien to a safari park. And they head into like a baboon kind of area, don't they?
First of all, you get they're getting ice cream from.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah.
And they're right next to the giraffe enclosure, and he walks up to the giraffes, and the giraffes are all sort of looking at him, and then all of a sudden they sort of get spooked, and they all run away,
don't they? Yeah,
they all bolt, and Catherine is sort of, she sees this, and she's a bit sort of, that's sort of weird, and she goes over to him and she goes, "Oh, don't worry, we'll go and see the monkeys, sort of thing. We'll go and see the baboons." So they get in the car and they go to drive through the baboon enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
And I like what they did with this. So they initially they is that, how can we make the baboons lose it? So they thought, well, we'll get a baby baboon and we'll put it in the back of the car. We'll hold it up so the baboons could see it. And they drove through, and the baboons looked at the baby and were like, "Yeah, fine, I don't care. We don't care." No, they had nothing, not even phased by the fact
one less mouth to feed.
Exactly, it was like not even phased by the fact they were taking one of the babies away. So the keeper, apparently the sort of head baboon, he'd had a cut. And the head keeper says, "Well, we've got to sew up this cut, so we're going to put him out, and we'll put him in the back of the car. I'll hold him up while he's out, and we'll see if that sort of does anything." So they knocked out this baboon, and they get in the back of the car, and it's Lee Remick and the kid, and I think it was Donner himself was in there.
Really? Okay.
Sort of filming it, and they sort of drive off, and the baboons saw them with the chief baboon, and they went absolutely fucking apeshit. Literally, they completely attacked the car, and Lee Remick's reactions and the kids' reactions are all completely real.
Well, they're lucky these fucking things didn't smash the windows. They would have torn them to pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they completely, and of course,
these are fucking. I'll tell you what, it is funny, looking back on this shit now, to see what they do now when they're like, just CG, it's fine. It's like fucking hell, they just didn't give a shit.
Get away with doing it these days, no. And apparently
I'll tell you what, it's a bloody effective scene though, because it is terrifying.
It's an amazing scene. It completely, like I said, and their reactions are completely real. Remick was traumatized by
I'm not surprised. I mean, if they got in, they legit. I mean, baboons are fucking dangerous. They would not want to fuck with a baboon.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently, the baboon was while they were driving through, he was beginning to wake up.
Oh Jesus!
And he grabbed Remick's hair and was pulling on, Remick's hair. So there was it was all real, genuinely terrifying, and very, very real.
Jesus.
So yeah, that scene is amazing.
It's an incredible scene. Yeah,
really go for that car.
Yeah. And of course she manages to speed away.
Yeah.
But again, things are piling up now. This is something weird with this kid.
Yeah. This kid is not normal.
Yeah. And I think while that's going on, we've got Robert, who's getting followed by Brennan at this public event. He sees it. I think he sees him outside of his house while he's leaving the house, and then they go to an event, and he's also there. He's following Brennan.
He's at a rugby match.
Yes, yeah. So he's following Robert around, and he basically pulls him aside, and he says, "Your wife's in danger. I need to talk to you." Which I'm assuming is probably Brennan's probably that's the one thing that's guaranteed to get him to meet me. It's the only way I'm going to get this guy to come and meet me is if I threaten his wife. So he's like, your wife's in danger. You need to meet with me. And of course, while that conversation is going on, Jennings is around as always, being a photographer, and gets more photos.
Yep.
And of course, he develops those, and the dark anomaly is above Brennan, but it's getting closer. I think every time it's getting closer, isn't it? Every time he looks,
it's more pronounced, and it's getting closer to him.
Yeah. So I think the following day, or later, maybe later that day, Robert meets with Brennan on a bench in the park. And he's like, "I am only here because you told me my wife is in danger. I gave you 5 minutes. You've got 5 minutes. Go for it." And basically he tells him everything. He says, Damien is the son of the devil. He's going to kill your wife. He's going to kill everyone around you. And once he's in a position to inherit your power, he will kill you too.
Yeah. Well, he also says that your wife is pregnant, and he will not allow.
Yes, that's right.
He will not allow the baby to be born.
No, because he can't have another heir.
Yeah, he will kill the baby, and he will kill your wife.
Yeah, and of course Robert is like, this is ridiculous. He's like, I gave you the time. You're ridiculous. But he continues and he says, you need to go to
Megiddo.
Tell Megiddo in Israel, and you need to find Bugenhagen, a man called Bugenhagen. He will tell you how to kill Damien.
I think he says the Exorcist, doesn't he?
He says the Exorcist Bugenhagen. Yeah, he does. He specifically calls him an exorcist. But of course, Robert's like, you're talking about killing my son. Like, the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Like, this is crazy. And he basically says, look, you told me my wife is in danger. I've come here. I told you had 5 minutes. Your 5 minutes are up. I never want to see you again. And he points at him. He's like, I never want to see you again. Ever. Yeah. Leave me alone forever. And he leaves. And then you get a moment where Brennan's kind of sat on his own on the bench, and he's kind of
on the bench,
looking around as the weather starts changing. The wind picks up, and he's looking very concerned. And then we get this sudden rainstorm.
And the wind picks up amazingly. And
Brennan runs for his life, as only Patrick Troughton can run, and he instantly looks like the Doctor. As soon as he runs, he's the Doctor. There he is.
When I say run,
run, exactly. It's like, God, as soon as he started running, when I was rewatching this, I was like, it's fucking Troughton's Doctor. Like, it's the way he runs, because Troughton's Doctor did a lot of running, and it's just like, that's Troughton's Doctor. There he goes.
Yeah. And he basically goes and gets under a tree, which gets struck by lightning. So he keeps moving on.
Yeah.
And he sees a church, so he makes for the church, and the gate's locked, but he climbs over, and as he climbs over, lightning strikes the gate and destroys the gate.
Yeah.
And he runs to the church door, but all the doors are closed.
Yeah.
And the lightning is coming down, and the wind is really, really kicking up, and as he hears this lightning strike, and he steps back, and looks up at the spire, and the lightning rod at the top of the spire
has not done its job very well.
No, it's struck by lightning. Well, I mean, it's struck by lightning. It's what it's designed for.
It's done what it's designed to do, but what happens next, I don't think was in the design.
And it's one of my favorite.
It's a wonderful shot
of any movie.
Great.
It just him staring, like, you get the close up of him staring up at screaming at this
falling
weather vane, and
staff.
The weather vane comes down, and it just pierces him.
Yeah.
And pins him through to the ground, and just holds him in place. And it's such an amazing shot of him,
just stuck there,
slumped but pinned to the.
It's great because it's not over gory. It's not too explicit. It's simple and absolutely horrifying. It just looks horrible, and it's a great image as well. As morbid as that sounds, is a wonderfully shot image. It looks incredible.
And apparently they didn't use a wind machine or anything like that. They used a hovercraft for
Jesus
that.
Christ.
Yeah, because I think that the thing about this movie is it was done almost on a shoestring. I think it had $2 million budget.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Do you reckon Doctor Who was filming the Sea Devils and the next lot, and they were like, "Oh, can we borrow that hovercraft you've managed to get for the day?"
Pertwee was in the next.
Troughton's like, "Oh, I need a favour."
76 would have been Baker, though, wouldn't it?
Oh, actually, yeah, you're probably right. It would have been too late then.
Yeah.
But yes, so as he said she's pregnant. He predicted it. And of course, Robert gets home, and Kathy tells him she's pregnant.
She's been saying, she tells him about her feelings and how she doesn't, feel like she's attached to Damien.
Yeah, she feels like it's not hers. She feels something's wrong.
and she's been seeing a psychiatrist, and he says, I need to see this psychiatrist. And she says, yeah, he wants to talk to you as well. And that's when she says, I'm pregnant, and I don't want to keep it. I don't want another child.
Yeah.
And of course he's, you see his face. He's like,
well, because he knows, and he's like, this will be my first actual child, my child.
Yeah.
I will actually get my own child, because obviously he knows. She doesn't know. She's starting to suspect, I guess. But he knows, like, this is his first child, effectively, because obviously the previous one died at birth.
And again, like you said with Peck's performance, he doesn't, big bursts or anything like that, but you can see it all on his face.
In his face. He really,
his inner turmoil.
Yeah, he really grounds this movie. Like, he grounds this movie in a way that I think most leading men wouldn't have. I think they might have gone overboard and it would have come off corny. I think him, like, almost his understated performance, and you're right, it's all of that emotion in the face rather than just going over the top. It really grounds it.
Do you know the thing about his own son?
No, I've no idea.
So he took this job a year after his own son had committed suicide.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so they didn't think he was going to take the job, but apparently he read the script, and he apparently he took it because he wasn't there for his own son, and he wanted to do this story.
Right.
Because of what happened to his son. It's a really, everybody thought, why is he doing this movie? His son committed suicide. It's very strange. But I don't know whether he found it cathartic or what, but he took the job.
Wow.
And he took a reduced, he had a reduced fee as well because they didn't have the money, but he did take up the option. So he got a percentage, and which made him one of the richest actors at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Jack Nicholson would famously do that with Batman.
Exactly.
Back in the 80s.
This movie did ridiculous money at the end. I think it made its budget back within the first day of its release.
Yeah.
So,
and of course, I think it's here that he also sees the newspaper story, Brennan's bizarre death, impaling, which is obviously further shocking. So Brennan was right, she is pregnant, and also now Brennan's dead. And I think he might have actually even hinted that would probably be the last time he'd see him anyway. I think Brennan kind of knew his time was up pretty much.
You find out from something from
the notes and stuff
from Jennings. Well, Jennings tells him something in a minute. Well, Jennings phones him, doesn't he? And he says,
have you read the paper?
Yeah. And basically, they meet up, don't they?
Yes. Yeah.
And
go on. Sorry.
He shows him the photos.
Yes.
Of the father, and he shows him the photo of the nanny, which shows that basically a
noose-like line.
A noose-like shadow around her.
And he says, at first I just thought these were weird. It was just a weird anomaly or a coincidence, like a really horrible coincidence. But obviously, as he continued taking more photos, it became very clear that's not the case.
Yeah, and basically they go to Brennan's house or Brennan's rooms in the, and he tells him that Brennan was actually dying anyway. Brennan was riddled with cancer, so he was dying already. And he says, I went to his room, and in his room is just pasted with Bible pages.
I can't remember how many pages he says, because he does say it's like he's like counted the number of pages. Like, this is insane.
And on the door, there's, I think, he says 30. Is it 30 crosses or something?
Yeah.
There's just crosses everywhere.
Yeah, he says his church was really close by to his apartment, and he was obviously trying to keep something out from the amount of, he's like, it would appear he was trying to keep something out.
Yeah, and he says about the painting, the picture, the photos he took, and he says, he basically says, this is kind of nothing to do with you, doesn't he? And he says, yeah, well, it is now. He said, because I took this picture of myself not of myself, but he took this picture while he was in the room, and the mirror was there, and he catches himself, and there's a great big black line across his head.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm in this now as well,
Yeah, this is not just about you. This is about me as well. Because I can see from this. I think he caught his reflection in a mirror, didn't he? And he said, I can see this line here, and it's obviously. So yes, I think Robert visits Kathy's therapist, and the therapist basically restates her desire to get rid of the child, and he's like, she really wants to get rid of it, and he says, no, absolutely not.
I'll fight this. I will fight this.
He says, I'll fight this. And the therapist asks why, and he says, because it was foretold that I would lose this child, and I refuse to let that happen. I'm fuck fate. I'm doing this. This child is going to live if it's the last thing I do. But of course, while he's out, and this is another horrible bloody scene as well. Kathy is sorting some hanging plants above the staircase on the kind of
landing.
Landing, and she's stood up on this stool, trying to fix it. Puts a goldfish bowl on the edge of the.
She removes it. There's a table.
Oh, it's a table she stands on, isn't it? Yes.
And so she takes there was a goldfish bowl on the table, so she takes that off and she puts that on the balustrade. Yeah. And then she moves the table over to get on the table to sort these plants out. Meanwhile, you've got the nanny stood in the middle of the nursery.
Yes, and he's just riding around
Damien
in circles.
Is just riding around and it's almost like he's dynamoing. He's revving up himself up.
Yeah.
He's completely right, and the nanny's just sort of stood there smiling at him while he's winding himself up around her. Then she opens the door.
Yeah.
And he goes tearing down the corridor.
Yeah.
And just slams straight into the table, and of course she goes over.
Yeah.
And she's holding on to the balustrade.
We see the goldfish bowl smash.
Goldfish completely smashes. Yep.
On the floor. And she's screaming. She's like, Damien,
she's screaming, Damien, help me! And he's basically just stood there looking at her.
Yeah.
And slowly her hands slip down.
It's such a horrible scene because she's just like, oh god, no. And she's like, she knows she can't hold on. She knows she's going to fall. And of course she falls, twists and falls flat on the ground. And we've got trickle of blood coming from her mouth. She is not well.
She refused to do the stunt because The Exorcist. What's the main lady in The Exorcist? What's her name? I can't remember what her name is now.
The girl who played Reagan.
No. The mother.
Oh, I forget. I'd have to go back and listen to our podcast on The Exorcist to work that out. It's been a while.
Well, she. One of the stunts that she did. Was when she gets hit by Regan, Ellen Burstyn.
Yes, and when she's hit across the room.
Yes, so when she was hit across the room, the guys who were pulling the cables pulled them really.
Yes, we covered that. We did cover that in the podcast.
And
actually,
they nearly broke her back. She had an injury in her back that basically she still has kind of sort of thing, and she didn't want that to happen to her, so she refused to do the stunt. So they rejigged it.
Yeah, it's a wall, isn't it? Yeah, she goes into a wall. She basically walks into the wall. I think that's what she does.
They made the wall, the floor upright.
Yeah,
and they dollied her in.
That's so right.
She's on a dolly, and they basically wheeled her towards the wall. So
it's a really effective shot.
Yeah,
it looks a little bit weird, but it's very effective.
I think it works really well.
I do as well. I think it works very well.
And I love the fact that Donna said they had goldfish ready to go for the breaking, and Donna was like, "I'm not killing anything for even goldfish for a movie." So they got sardines.
He even said he even disdained zoos. He hated the idea of zoos as well. Obviously, they filmed in that zoo, and he said I fucking hate zoos. He's like, can't stand them.
So they basically got sardines from the catering people, and they painted them orange.
Yeah. Well, why kill a bloody animal for no reason? That's exactly there's no need for that. But yeah, of course, Robert rushes to hospital, and he's first approached by a doctor, who basically lists off her injuries, and he says but she's pregnant, and he says no, not anymore. Not anymore. Yeah. Sorry.
And I hate the way this doctor.
The delivery is like, fucking hell, your bedside manner, mate.
Oh, prick.
He's not even like, you need to sit down. Let's go in another room. Let's just chill a minute. Got something terrible to tell you. He literally is just like, not anymore. She's not. It's like, fuck.
It's the dismissive way he just says, well, you're young. You can have more.
Yeah, he says that. He's like, well, she's young. Like, if, with the with she heal up, you can have another one. Like, don't worry about it, mate. Like, well, what's the problem? Don't see the big deal. Jesus.
Like, wow. Your bedside manner is appalling.
Yeah.
You're an asshole.
Yeah. But of course, in spite of what he said to the therapist, he was like, no, this baby is going to be protected. It's going to fucking happen. While he was at the fucking therapist, the baby got killed. And it's almost to spite him. It's almost because, it's almost like it happened at that moment because he literally said, no, I'm not going to let this happen. So it happened. Almost, I almost kind of think in my mind it happened the exact moment. It's like, right, it's going to die right now then, to spite
almost
you.
Almost like the moment he sort of made the decision to...
Or said it out loud, at least. It was like, nope.
Yeah.
Not happening.
And I think you get this scene now where he goes to see Damien, doesn't he? And Damien's asleep, and the nanny's asleep.
Yes, but we do briefly get the moment where she tells him not to let him kill her. She says in the bed, she's like, please don't let him kill me. So, and that obviously gives him the fear to be like, oh shit, I'm going to go home and see Damien. And then so as you were, sorry.
And he's asleep, and the nanny's asleep in the sort of next room, and you can see her through the room. And as he's sort of goes closer to Damien, the dog is in the window. He gets up and starts growling.
Yeah.
And you're not quite sure what he's going to do, but he's sort of like it almost looks like he's going to go for the dog.
Yeah,
he's sort of there, and then you can hear the phone rings.
Yeah,
and he leaves and closes the door, sort of thing.
And I think it's like the following day he says to the nanny, he's like, I thought we told you to get rid of that dog, and she instantly comes back. Oh, he's gone now. He went this morning. It's like you're
they came and picked
so full of shit. It's like she's like, oh, he's gone now. Yeah, they picked him up this morning. It's fine. It's like, oh, you bitch.
And all the other servants have all gone as well.
Yes, everyone's left.
They had a cook and they had a maid, but they've all left. And she's the only one there, and she says, "Oh, don't worry, I can look after it."
And of course, he suspects this, and he's like, "I will check on this." He's like, and she obviously knows he's got bigger things to fucking deal with right now, so she can continue to get away with it. But she's like, oh yeah, it's fine. But he is like, I'm gonna check on this because I do not fucking buy this something is up, but yeah, so Robert and Jennings head off to Italy. They're trying to find the father that was present, Father
they're
Spoleto.
trying to, first of all, they're trying to find the records. They're trying to find the hospital that he was born in, and they're trying to find records of the birth and who the mother was.
Yeah, and they determine, or they discover that there was a fire, and of course Robert is arguing like, well, but the record, you must have some records. Like, how big was this bloody fire? And Jennings comes up and he's like, the fire literally started in the records room. There's nothing. Yeah. Like, it started there and it spread through the whole building. Like, there's nothing.
And it was basically right after you guys left as well. It's like...
Yeah, like literally the second you left, this fire started. And of course, Robert begs with one of the nuns there, and says like someone must have survived.
Yeah,
and she's like, yeah, some people survived.
Well, he says, what about Father Spoleto? He said the really tall guy. He said he was the guy that he was there. He was the one that did this adoption, and she keeps saying, no adoption was ever done at this hospital. There are no adoptions at this hospital, and he's saying no. There was this guy, this.
Which I mean, from her perspective, is probably true. Like as far as she's concerned, that is probably fact.
She says, "Oh yeah, I know who the one you're talking about. He was he's this monastery in wherever that it is that he's now is." So they basically get in the car and they go to this monastery where the Father Spoleto is.
Yeah.
And when they get there, there's it's this big sprawling monastery, and there's
I love the shot as they're driving up the hillside and they look down upon it.
They look down on it. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Wonderful.
It's a really great shot. And they discover the guy, the priest there, or monk or whatever he is. He says yes, he's here, but he's says
basically a mute now. He doesn't
Yeah, but he also says he renounced God, and they're like, what? He told you that? And he's like, what?
Yeah, because they're like, how did he tell you that? He can't speak.
Yeah, he said because his hand was withered and his eye was withered, and it's a sign of renouncing God. It's punishment from God for renouncing him. And he said he wrote one of
it's like the only thing he wrote, wasn't it? I think it was like the only thing he's ever written.
He says he renounced God, and they go to find him, and you see that he's badly burnt, and his eye is I mean, what would you describe the eye as?
I don't know. It's horrible.
It's there, but it's clearly useless.
Yeah, and the flesh is kind of almost it's burnt, isn't it? I guess it's burnt from the fire, but it's a horrible visual.
I presume he started it.
Probably, yes, or it just started by itself, and
possibly.
But yes, he is basically useless to them, and they ask him.
And he's Robert gets very aggressive with him, and the monk saying, "Please, please leave him, leave him."
Yeah,
and he's saying, I want to know what about the mother. I need to know where the mother is.
Tell me where the mother is.
And he moves his hand, and the monk says, "Excuse me," and the monk puts a chalk or like, is it charcoal? Piece of charcoal.
I think it's charcoal.
Charcoal in his hand, and he writes this word. And he says, "What does that mean? I don't know what that is." And he says, "Well, it's an old ruin. It's a cemetery sort of thing. It's an ancient cemetery." He says, "There's nothing there but that." And he says, "Well, that's where I've got to go." He says, "Well, no, there's literally nothing there."
Yeah.
And he says, "Nope, that's where I've got to go. Where is it?" And he says, "Well, you can find it easily on the map."
Mate, I've come from England to Italy. I'm going to go there now.
Yeah, like exactly. And he says, you can easily find it on the map. It's it's there.
Yeah.
So again, off they go, but I think they pull over at like a cafe hut, don't they? And they're having coffee.
Yeah, and this is where Jennings kind of explains the prophecy, doesn't he? Kind of breaks down the poem into like current day events and what people currently believe.
He's breaking down the interpretation, and I think
it fits.
He says something about. I can't remember. He interprets one bit as he thinks it's the entry into the common market, isn't it, or something? And then he says that he thinks the sea of turmoil is politics.
Yeah.
And he thinks, this is basically they think that he's going to be, he'll get through politics and he'll rule through that.
Yeah.
And I think Robert's still not completely convinced by this. He says, doesn't it? Well, that he says about the common market. He says, well, that's a stretch.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So he's still not believing at this point.
The thing is, though, it's like this is what I really like about this character. I think he's like all of us, because we'd be like, no, this is still like, I'm a reasonable man. This is just bollocks. Like, there's no way.
He's trying to convince himself that
he's a man of strong beliefs, and he's like, no, this goes against my view of the world, and no, like, this is not logical, this doesn't make sense, this can't be the case. But you can see through the film he's just slowly but surely is like, he's coming around to, like, it's the inevitable truth. Like, he's everything he can to deny it, but it's getting more and more clear that this is true.
Yeah.
So of course they head to the cemetery. I think it's called cemetery, something like that.
I can't remember. Yeah, something like
that. Because isn't it short for Armageddon or something?
Well, that's Megiddo.
Megiddo. Sorry, that's right. That comes in a bit.
That's
yeah.
It, yeah.
So they head to the cemetery, and they manage to find the gravesite of Damien's biological of Damien's mother, and also Robert and Kathy's biological baby, and they're buried next to each other. And of course, like, Robert's like, why are they buried here? Like, why is my son buried here of all places?
Because all the other graves they're all ancient graves. They're all it's an
ancient disused burial ground. Like, it's not been, it's not maintained or anything. I mean, it's gated in, but it's like a closed burial ground. It's just like, it's been left to ruin, really. Great visuals though. Yeah. It looks amazing.
I mean, you can tell that it's a set, but I actually like the the skies. I'm pretty sure are matte paintings.
Yeah, they look amazing.
They're lovely.
They're gorgeous.
Really good,
yeah,
really great paintings. So of course, you've got these two big slabs that are on they
come up surprisingly easily, but it's fine.
I know,
for the sake of cinematography, it's fine.
They do a terrible job of making it look hard.
Oh, it looks like the easiest thing in the world. It's like, done.
Yeah, it's not. That bit's really not done terribly well.
No. It's probably one of the few criticisms I have, actually. Is just that, and that's a nitpick because it really doesn't matter. It's just
no. Of course, they open the first grave of the mother, and inside is the body of a jackal.
Yes. As I think finally. I believe eventually Brennan did say that to him, didn't he? I think he said it to him on the bench, so I think he did know that it was meant to be a jackal at that point. Yeah, they find the jackal, in the graveyard, and they then.
Meanwhile, you get that there's something in the sort of the surrounding bushes and woods.
Yeah,
there's something around them watching them.
Yeah, and Jennings says, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, and he says, no, I need to see. I need to open the other grave.
Yeah, because he says, like, if that's a dog as well, then maybe Damien is my son. Or maybe my son's alive. Maybe my son's out there somewhere, Maybe they took my son from me.
Jennings is like, no, you really don't want to know. You don't want to know. And then he's like, no, we've got to open it. So he pushes the second grave, and in there is a baby with its head caved in. It's got a great big smash in its head, and
of course, he realizes,
they killed him. They killed
my baby at birth. It wasn't a stillbirth.
No, it was they purposely killed the baby to replace him with Damien.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one of the things I love about this movie as well, the Damien thing. So apparently, the name Damien after this movie almost completely disappeared from.
I'll bet it fucking did.
Nobody wanted to call their kid Damien for a long time.
No, I'm sure. Yeah, I always used to love the Damien bits in Only Fools and Horses with Rodney's son called Damien.
Yeah. Well, we used to do when my brother was acting up. We used to search his head.
Sorry, it's Dell's son, isn't it? It's Dell's son called Damien, and Rodney. And whenever Rodney sees him, he gets the music coming on and stuff.
Yeah.
I love it. Fucking overplayed as fuck, but I still love some Only Fools. Still good stuff.
It's still amazing.
So of course, then the dogs appear. And this is like a terrifying, almost like American Werewolf on the Moors kind of feel. Where they're all stood in the mist, and they're surrounding them. There's like 4 of them, I think, 4 or 5 of them, and they're
I think it's five or
stood
6,
around, growling and staring. Of course, they're all the same breed as the Rottweiler that we saw earlier. But of course, Robert is.
I will say, if that was a genuine attack, they would have been
Oh,
been over.
Jennings does remarkably well considering, like...
Yeah.
Because I always assumed, when I watched that film the first time, I was like, oh, he's dead here. Like, he's torn
totally
apart.
Dead. Yeah.
But he's not, because he gets up and he, like, walks in. It's like, no, come on, mate. Those are Rottweilers. Like, that. They would have torn you to fucking pieces if they wanted to.
So, two things with those. So, one, apparently the dogs wanted to hump each other. They were more interested in humping each other. Yeah. And one of the stuntmen, actually, even though he had like leather armor and metal plates on, the dog managed to bite through.
Wow.
He ended up with like 14 stitches, I think, in his leg.
Jesus. So
even though they were like slightly more playful than they wanted them to be, they were still bloody dangerous.
Yeah. And the one thing I liked just before they get attacked is that obviously Jennings is like, we need to get the fuck out of here. But Robert is like grieving over his son, and he's like determined to cover his son back up.
Yeah.
And he kind of pushes, it's like against all sense. He's like lost almost sense in that moment where it's like, these dogs are going to kill you. But he's like, no, I'm going to bury my son. And he pushes the stone back over before leaving. But yeah, you're right. It's ridiculous. Like, I can kind of buy the dogs not killing Robert, because obviously it was always said that Damien would when he could take power properly, Robert would die. But Jennings should have been screwed here. And I think so, it's like, how did Jennings survive that? Because Jennings is the one that's on the floor with like 4 of them ripping and tearing.
Like around, aren't they?
But somehow Robert comes out worse, because Robert gets impaled on the fence, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's climbing the fence and he goes through his arm.
Yeah. But they both managed to get away.
And one thing I did notice was when I think it's when Jennings is getting over the fence, there's a shot of Jennings just climbing over, and in the background you can see 3 trainers through the bushes.
Can you? I didn't notice that. That's amazing.
I noticed it. Yes, I noticed this when I was watching it yesterday. It's like, oh my god, you can actually see the bloody trainer. It's a very quick shot.
Sure,
but you can see them moving around in the bushes. It's
like the car in Braveheart is like, it's there for a split second. Yeah. Oh wow, I didn't notice that. That's interesting.
So yeah, they get back to the car and they manage to get away.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's it. They've basically decided we've got to go to Megiddo now.
Yeah, that's it. We're going to Megiddo, and he basically is then of course, because he gets the phone call. So I think this is where Kathy dies. Isn't it?
Of course. Yes. Yeah. So while this is going on, he tells her to get dressed. He
leave.
He
he's like,
first.
Get out of there.
He says, you've got to get out. So get in.
I think he's arranged for someone to pick her up, hasn't he? He's like, I've arranged for someone to pick you up.
Is it Tom? I think was like his friend.
His driver, isn't it? Because he was the guy who was driving them to the church, and he was like, Tom, drive on, Tom.
Yeah.
And also he was the same Tom. I think he sent Tom up to deal with the fucking nanny that hung herself as well. Tom does some real shit jobs.
Yeah.
It's like anytime some crap needs to be done, Tom's the man. So yeah, he sent Tom, and he's like, you need to get up and get out of here and come and meet me in Italy. And she's like, Italy? Like, what the hell is going on? Yeah. And she's like, I don't think I can move. Like, I'm, obviously, because she's like, her arm's strung up, and she's obviously in a lot of pain. And he's like, no, like, you have to come with me. So she agrees, and she's like, okay, I'll do what I can, and I'll go and meet Tom outside. And of course, as she's getting ready, she starts putting a veil on, doesn't she? And it kind of covers her.
My wife at this point was like, forget getting changed.
Yeah, I thought the same. I was like, get out, just leave, get changed in the car, get changed,
putting your clothes on. Just you're in a dressing gown.
She's in a full gown. Yeah, it's not like she's indecent or anything. It's like, just get the fuck out of there. Like, seriously.
And she's pulling something off. It's sort of stuck over her head.
Yeah, it kind of gives her a veil over her face.
And she thinks someone comes in and she thinks it's Tom. She calls to Tom. When she turns around, it's not. It's the nanny. It's Miss Baylock. And it's the eye, all in the eyes.
Oh god, she's got such a good look. Yeah.
And she's just staring at her, and again, Remick's eyes are amazing as well, because she's there.
Her performance in this is tremendous.
Absolutely terrified eyes. She's sort of stuck in front of Mrs. Baylock, and you just see that this terrified thing, and then basically it turns to the shot from the below the outside and below the room, and there's an ambulance just pulling out from underneath, and she basically comes
through the roof, and it's a great shot when the back doors open as well. It's like, oh my god, that shot is just amazing.
She smashes through the roof of the ambulance, and the back door is open.
I guess it's like the force of her coming through forces the doors open, and it's just a tremendous shot. It really is.
It's an amazing shot.
And of course, he gets the phone call of Kathy's death, and I'm guessing this is the scene where you said he wanted to lose it, because this would be the logical scene where he would lose it.
Yeah, this is the scene where he said to Donna, I think he should smash the place up. I think he should completely lose it. And Donna was like, no. He needs to be calm. He needs to, he needs to just bottle. Pull all this back. He needs to pull all this emotion
in. And it
in.
Comes across like he's just seething with rage. It's not like
it's amazing, because Jennings comes into the room and he's just led on the bed, looking like he's always looking at us.
Jennings doesn't know she's dead, does he? At this point, he's just coming in and talking about Bugenhagen and all that,
Yeah, and he's almost looking at us on the bed.
Yeah, he is almost staring right at the camera. Yeah.
And he says, "What's wrong?" And he says, "Kathy's dead."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry."
Yeah. And it's this moment where he's finally broken in grief, that he says, I want to go to Megiddo, and Damien has to die. Like, I want him to die. Which of course they do. They head to Megiddo, and it turns out it's like an archaeological dig, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actual real site as well.
Is it?
I think it's in.
It's in Israel,
but
isn't it?
It's actually in Jerusalem. It's. I think.
And they find a guy who takes them to Bugenhagen. Who's this
played by the amazing Leo McKern.
Oh yeah, and he's great here. He's playing like an English archaeologist slash exorcist.
The only actor to appear in more than one.
Oh really? That's interesting.
Yeah, he's in the second one as well. He's the only actor to appear in the second one.
So he basically says to Jennings, fuck off, mate. I need to talk to Robert on his own.
Yeah,
I need to have this for his ears only.
This is for Robert's ears only. So Jennings, he nods. Robert nods to Jennings, and Jennings agrees to leave.
Yeah.
So Megiddo explains that he's the son of the devil, and he takes out this bundle of daggers, which he
it's like 7 of them, I think.
I can't remember how many there are. Five or
it's
either 5 or 7.
I think it's 7, and he explains how to do it, and
he says it's important that that these are done properly. He says these daggers, which have crucifixes and the handle. It has Jesus is on the handle, and he says this one needs to go into the middle. It needs to go into the heart. He says this will kill the body. He says, but you need to radiate, and he sets them all up.
Yeah, because you put them around, then, don't you?
He puts them in the table, and he says they have to radiate out from the center, and that will kill the spirit as well as the body. He says, it will end him sort of forever, sort of thing.
Yeah. Of course, Robert is like, Jesus Christ, this is a bit much. But he does also tell Robert that if he really is the son of the devil, he will have the mark of the beast. If he's the real Antichrist, he will have the mark of the beast somewhere. He'll have 3 6s somewhere on his body.
And he says, "Well, he doesn't. I've bathed him. I know. I've seen. I haven't seen any evidence of this." He says, "Then it'll be in his hairline. You need to shave his head. It'll be in his head."
Yeah.
So he takes these daggers and he goes out and Jennings is outside and he's like, "What happened?" And he says to him, "He wants me to kill Damien." And again he says, but I'm not. He wants me to kill a child. I'm
yeah,
not gonna kill a child.
He's like, he might not be my child, but he's still a fucking child. Like, Jesus.
Still a child. I can't kill a child. And he throws the daggers.
Yeah.
He throws the daggers into
it's like a building site, isn't it?
It's a building site. Yeah, he throws it into like a sand pit in the building site, and Jennings says, "Well, if you're not going to do it, I'll do it."
Yeah, so because of course Jennings' life is in danger as well.
Yeah, he knows. Jennings knows he's going to die. He's seen the pictures, you know.
And one of the things I really like about this is, like, from the moment you know that Jennings is going to die, up until the point when he does die, there were moments like in the graveyard and other places where I'm like, oh god, he's dead. Oh god, he's dead. It's like, is this it? Yeah. Is this it? Like, I thought when Bugenhagen told him to wait outside, I was like, oh god, he's going to die when he's outside. Something's going to happen. You're constantly on edge. But anyway, sorry, continue. Yeah.
So he goes to this into this the sand pit, and he's collecting the daggers back up because they all fell out, and he's down on the ground collecting these, and at the top of this hill you see this lorry which has got, it's a flatbed back, and it's got glass in it, and the driver gets out, and as he gets out you see the clutch goes down of its own accord.
Yeah,
and the lorry starts.
It's very
rolling towards. It's very down the hill towards him.
Very Final Destination.
It is.
I wonder if that was an inspiration for Final Destination.
I think it must have been.
This is a great shot. I love this shot.
And it rolls right the way, and it hits a stop. And as it hits the stop, the sheet of glass in the back of the truck goes across the way, and it completely decapitates Jennings, and destroys a window behind Jennings. It's such a fantastic shot.
It's great, and the shot after the shot I really love is when the head comes to rest on the floor. You can see the reflection in the shard of glass.
Yeah,
fucking amazing.
I love
so the fact good.
The fact that the head rolls all the way across the glass as it's.
Yeah. I don't know how many times they did that. Amazing. Probably just the once, but it was perfect.
So originally, they had set it up so that it was going to be on a crane, and it was going to drop on him, but they couldn't get the glass to fall right. So the effects guy said, "Look, I think I've got an idea. I think if we put it on a truck or something, we can do it horizontally as opposed to instead of falling down."
Yeah.
And so they came up with that. And Donner said what he wanted was with that scene was, he said, when somebody sees something horrific that they know is sort of coming, he said most people will cover their eyes for 3 seconds.
So it needs to last longer than 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So he counted to 5. So that basically when people were covering their eyes, when they uncover them, they still catch the head rolling along the glass.
Yeah.
And so he purposely set it up for just longer than it needed to be, sort of thing. It's amazing, isn't it? That I mean, because at this point, although he'd worked in television for years, this was his first movie. This was his first film.
Yeah.
And he does such a stunning job of directing this.
It's a masterpiece.
It's so wonderfully done, that scene, and it's still terrifying. And he said, David Warner said, I could never watch that scene. I didn't want to see myself get decapitated.
Oh, I fucking do.
I mean, I would.
If someone decapitated me in a movie, I'd be like, oh yeah, I want to watch that. That's awesome.
I kind of would as well. Yeah. I mean, that's. I think horror fans like the idea.
Yeah, it's like, I want to be a zombie. I want to be this. I want to be that. Yeah, definitely.
And apparently years later he was asked about the head, and he said, "Oh yeah, I had it for years." He said, "But I think I lost it in a divorce."
That's brilliant. But of course, then we hard cut, and I love this hard cut. We hard cut to Robert on a plane, clutching the bag of daggers. He's like, "That's it. That's fucking." Oh, actually, sorry. We do get that horrified reaction from him when he sees Jennings, obviously. But then we hard cut to him holding the daggers. He's determined now. He's gonna kill him.
It's it. I mean, that's almost like it's the final nail, isn't it? It's the final nail that says that's it. This is not normal.
He's gonna do it.
Definitely.
Yeah. He's gonna do it. But even then, he still has a moment where he's like, I still need to be sure. Yeah. And he sneaks into the room, and he cuts the hair. And I've always thought there's no way this kid stayed asleep for all this. What's going on?
So what I like is he tricks the dog.
Yes, he tricks the dog into going downstairs, doesn't he? And he closes the hatch.
He tricks the dog into sort of basically going into like a cellar, doesn't he?
Yeah,
He shut the dog's shut in there, and he goes up and he finds a pair of scissors and he starts chopping at the kid's hair.
And of course, he finds the birthmark. The
birthmark, which I think we also forgot to say that Father Brennan had the mark on his thigh.
Yes, yeah. They never really explained why he had the mark. I was never quite sure about that. No,
I think Begito says that all those who serve him will have the mark somewhere.
Okay, yes, and of course he was repenting for his service.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So he finds the birthmark, and basically that's then confirmed everything, hasn't it? At that point, there's no doubting now. But of course, Mrs. Baylock attacks,
she goes full on nuts, doesn't she?
She does, yeah.
Literally
she loses her calm because she's been very calm the whole way through this. Even when she's murdered someone, she's been pretty calm about it. But she goes full on. Jumps on his back and but he does manage to overpower her, and he kidnaps Damien.
He picks up Damien and I like this. And the kid, they're going down the stairs and he's freaking out, and he grabs a light fitting as he goes by. Yeah. And he pulls the light thing. I think he gets electrocuted because when
I believe he did, and he just kept going anyway.
They fall down the stairs and at the bottom because I think I think he gets electrocuted because he's unconscious at that point. The kid he's just sort of he's out. And I love this is. You can see that he doesn't care anymore because he grabs Damien by the arm and he's just dragging him.
Yeah.
He's dragging his unconscious form along the ground.
Yeah.
And he throws him into the passenger seat of the car, along where the daggers are.
Yeah.
And he tears off down out of the grounds.
Yes.
But as he's leaving, he goes through like the gate, doesn't he? Which is obviously police manned, but he doesn't stop. So the police guy on duty phones for backup, saying somebody's torn off through the gates. And I presume he doesn't know it's him. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it is in his car. He could just think it was someone stolen the car, or I don't know. But either way, I mean, someone's broken in, and they're going to investigate that.
So they basically he phones for backup, and the other police cars start a chase. And Bugenhagen told Thorne that he has to.
It's like hallowed ground, isn't it?
Kill Damien on hallowed ground, yeah. So he has to go to consecrated ground. So he goes to a church, and he takes him basically to the sort of the altar, doesn't he?
And of course he's kicking and screaming as he takes him.
And he's I love that the way the kid sort of starts appealing to him. It's like, Daddy.
Yeah, he's like, Daddy, no, please, Daddy, no.
And you can see he's struggling with what he's doing. He's like, he doesn't really want to do it.
No,
like he said, he's still a boy. He's still a kid.
He's a child. Yeah.
And but
of course he's seen too much. He's seen too much for it to not be true now. At this point, it's like there's no denying it.
No.
So it's too late. It's too late for Damien to appeal to him now.
Yeah.
But of course he stalls him long enough.
Yeah.
Because just as Robert is about to stab Damien, the police arrive and obviously see a man about to stab a child in a church and open fire. And they shoot and kill Robert.
You get that great slow-mo close-up of the bullet leaving the gun.
Yeah.
Which is a really nice little shot. I like that.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
And then it sort of cuts and basically you end up at the cemetery, don't we?
Yes, it's Robert and Kathy's funeral at the Arlington Cemetery, and Yeah, so it's kind of left a bit ambiguous as to whether he managed to stab Damien or not before he was shot. But then, of course, we then see that Damien is at the funeral with no less than the President of the United States.
He stood between the President and the First Lady.
Yeah.
And
then we get that wonderful shot.
Yeah, you get him. He literally turns around and faces us, and he's looking
smiles
right at us.
At the screen. Yeah.
And he looks really moody, and then slowly his little face lights into that horrible little smile of his.
Yeah. And that's where we end. That's where part 1 ends, anyway. It will be picked up in the sequel.
And the original ending was different.
What was the original ending?
The original ending is there are 3 coffins.
Oh, okay.
So he actually did kill Damien. And
but of course, even if that was true, he wouldn't have killed the spirit. He would have only killed the body.
No. But they had that was the initial ending, and apparently Alan Ladd Jr., who was the producer, saw it, and he basically said, "Wouldn't it be better if, he didn't kill the kid if
Damien survived?" Yeah.
And he said to him, "Okay, well, but can we have some money to do reshoots?" And Alan Ladd said, "Yeah, it's yours." So he gave them money. They went back and they reshot the ending.
Yeah,
which
it's
I think
a better ending. I think
it's a much better ending
because the ending with the president is like, oh my god, like this is and of course it will be followed by a sequel, and I quite like the sequel actually. I think part 2 is great.
Yeah, I think that all of them are good, but
I even love the third one. The third one is batshit, but I kind of love it for just going there. It's like, we're going to go all out with this. We're going to do it. But I really like. I think the second one is a very good film. The second one
has way gorier and better deaths.
Yes, it's got more of a budget, I think, as well.
Yeah, and I think that the second one is the reason why I don't like getting in lifts.
Fair enough.
I do not like getting in lifts, and for a long time as a kid, I really didn't get in them. I would rather walk up the stairs wherever we were than get in a lift.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, The Omen, an absolutely amazing film. I think it shows. If you look at films like this and then films like Superman, you see the range that Donner had as a director. When he went on, he did Goonies. Yeah, he did the Goonies as well.
And did pretty much all of the Lethal Weapon movies.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was a phenomenal director. And this is probably my favorite film of his, to be honest. I absolutely adore this movie. I'm such a Goonies fan that
I get it. I get it totally. I love the Goonies. Don't get me wrong. I love the Goonies, but something about this film that I absolutely adore.
This is probably a better directed movie, but the Goonies is.
Goonies is just yeah.
And I love Superman. The first Superman is amazing.
Oh yeah. But yes, that was The Omen.
We should say about all the weird goings on.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't know whether we believe them or not. The
thing is, it's funny because they go through this list of things and they're like, oh my god, and then this happened, and then this happened, and it's like 99% of them are things that almost happened to the cast but didn't. So it's like, well, you could just as easily argue that God was protecting you and helping you.
I think that's it. That's true, isn't it? I think if anything, God, none of them were really hurt. So I think it's a case of. Wasn't surely God was looking out for you?
You could have made the argument that God was helping you with production rather than hindering you.
So at least 2 of the planes were struck by lightning.
Yeah, which is weird.
Which apparently planes are struck. It's not actually it's a common thing. Apparently trains get trains.
Another fucking reason for me not to get in planes then.
Planes get struck by lightning all the time. I think
didn't
apparently
know that.
And it doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, apparently I don't know how much, but yeah, so there's that. Apparently there was a zookeeper that died in a lion thinking.
Oh yeah, I think they shot scene with the lions as well, but didn't use it. And apparently he stupidly forgot to lock a door or something afterwards, and he was killed after they'd finished filming and gone away. I think he just basically neglected to close a door or do something and was killed by a lion. But so, I mean, lions will do that. So
exactly. It's like strange how wild animals will do things.
like hungry wild animals.
There was at least 2 IRA bombings that they narrowly avoided.
I guess, but it's like, considering the time, I mean, that was London during the fucking,
That's it. They were in the 70s was a prime time.
Constant fear of an IRA bombing in London.
The IRA bombings. So there was two bombings there was a plane crash that they were due to go on this plane.
It was a bird strike, wasn't it? I think. It was a bird strike that led to them crashing. They were due to go on this plane and they didn't go. They decided to. I can't remember exactly why they didn't go, but they didn't go that particular day. Yeah.
So they missed the plane, and the plane had a bird strike and it crashed.
Mm.
So there was that apparently, and one of the I think it was the one of the effects guys. I think later he was working in somewhere else, and he was in a car accident, and his
wife was beheaded, wasn't she?
Yeah, I think it was his girlfriend or wife was decapitated by the I think they said the wheel.
Something horrible like that. And of course he was the guy who came up with the decapitation of Jennings' character.
Yeah.
So that's a weird and horrible coincidence. I think Richard Donner put it best though, when he says, if it was a comedy, we'd all be talking about the funny things that happened on set.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have brought up any of this stuff. It's only because it was a horror film that you're bringing up all of these horrible, weird things that happened. If all of this happened on a normal movie, you wouldn't have been like, "Oh, this movie was cursed."
No. And I think also, I think a lot of the crew and the cast all sort of felt that they were dealing with something that they maybe shouldn't have been dealing with.
Yeah, sure.
I think
that adds towards it, doesn't it?
There's always that sort of, this is. I think people weren't quite as cynical as they are now. These days, no one gives a fuck about religious stuff to that degree. I mean, I'm not saying everybody. That's a sweeping statement, but it's now more accepted that religious stuff is not as widely thought about in the same way as it would have been in the 70s.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a feeling that they probably would have all been a bit slightly superstitious about doing something with religious themes. So I think they probably did play up to it. It puts bums on seats, doesn't it?
Of course it does. It's perfect fucking marketing, isn't it?
So it's you could cynically say, well, they emphasized all this on purpose to get more people to watch it.
Yeah,
and it worked.
Oh yeah, totally.
Certainly didn't impede The Exorcist when that came out.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, either way, this movie, fucking masterpiece. Love it. Thoroughly enjoyed rewatching it.
Yeah.
Of course, next time we will be back with a usual review. But yeah, I'm very curious what we're going to do after this now, because we've got a list now. We're all organised and everything. So, yes, but in any case, thank you for listening, everybody. And, we shall catch you next time.
Bye.